Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Puneet Kataria, founder of Customer Success Box, a customer success platform for B2B SaaS. Puneet has worked for companies such as Honeywell, Telelogic, IBM, ThoughtWorks, and Kayako before starting his own venture in 2016. Hi Puneet, welcome to ELI.
Thank you. Thank you, Priya. Thank you for having me here. Pleasure.
And I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. I think that was a wonderful introduction. I'm like, there's not much to it. Went through my I've got my bachelor's and master's in computer science. Then did my a little bit of an MBA for about a year from IIM Bangalore, and that was sort of in between. And I've been running the corporate ladder. Started as an engineer. Eventually got into sales, and then eventually finally became an entrepreneur, and that's where I am. Just a small correction. So we sort of started in 2018 to be ideal in CustomerSuccessBox. 2016 was my first venture, which was in the advocacy marketing space, which did not fly. Turned out I don't think that market exists. But CustomerSuccessBox, for all practical purposes, 2018, yeah.
Tell us about it. Tell us what is Customer Success Box.
Sure. So like you mentioned, let me give you a little bit of a backdrop, and I think then people will be able to make a lot more sense about why Customer Success Box and what is customer success to start with, because it's such a new field. There are lots of definitions floating around, and people have their their own version of the truth. So let's decode that a little bit. So I'll start with the problem statement. So if you look at the world that we live in today, Priya, we don't buy things anymore. I'll start with the B2C example, although we do B2B. We don't buy things anymore. Earlier, you used to you purchase, let's say, CDs if you wanted to listen to music. You would buy DVDs if you wanted to watch DVDs or Blu-rays if you wanted to watch movies. Not anymore. Today you have Netflix. Today you've got Spotify, and all these are essentially either content as a service, music as a service, whatever you want to call it. And similarly, in the software world, on the B2B side, similar transitions be happening. We used to purchase software and then pay a very small token maintenance fee. Those were the old days. But in the subscription economy, we don't buy software anymore. We actually subscribe to it. And fundamentally, that is what subscription economy is all about, where we are not buying. What I mean by that is, from the buyer's perspective, because they're not committing to anything upfront, it's very easy for them to take a decision, quick decision. But if that does not work out, if they are not getting value, they are going to essentially move on to another platform. And that is where customers churn, and the businesses who are delivering those softwares are not able to get the expected revenue. So if you look at the standard sales funnel, which is, let's say, awareness, interest, consideration, purchase, and then comes the customer, and that's when we used to celebrate in the ownership economy. But today, just acquiring a customer is no more the end goal, because as a SaaS business, you only make, say, 5 to 15% at max revenue, or the revenue of the total LTV or total lifetime value of the company. You only make 5%, 10% of the total LTV on the day you acquire a customer, even if they're paying you upfront for the entire year. Mm-hmm. That means 95% of your revenue will come in as future recurring revenue when they renew month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year, and for many years to come. And customers will only renew, and you will only get that 95% of the lifetime value if you are able to retain them as a customer. Customers will stay with you as customers if you are delivering value. And delivering value starts from everything after acquisition, after you've acquired a customer. So which is onboarding the customer, taking them all the way to success, success that your marketing website promised, which is not just, creating logins for 5 users. It goes way beyond that. And from there, making sure that the renewal happens. From there, making sure you're just not solving the first use case that they came to solve. You hopefully are helping them with more use cases. That means driving upsells and upgrades, which leads to more value for your customers and hopefully more value and more dollars and more revenue for your business. And this is the piece that we essentially solve for our customers, which is, think of it as a funnel post sales. And that's what Customer Success Box is all about. In very simple words, if you look at where the customer lives when pre-acquisition, so they live in marketing platforms, they live in prospecting tools, they live in data enrichment tools, they live in sales and CRM and go through million stages, all the love and care, and we sort of treat every lead with so gently, so beautifully, so perfectly that we literally perfected the art. And when they become a customer, the traditional world only treated them post a customer just becoming a support ticket. Okay. And that was so unfortunate. And I think while support tickets absolutely need to be handled, and there's no denying that, and I think they form one of the key ingredients post sales as well. But the customer needs to live somewhere. It needs to live from within, from a system perspective. CRMs can't do that because CRMs do not get the insights with the usages and all of that stuff. So Customer Success Box is designed to be taking over the journey where the CRM ends. So once you acquire the customer, that is when Customer Success Box kicks in. So think of us as Salesforce for the post-sales world, but we're not the replica of Salesforce or any CRM for that matter. But what we do is we essentially bring in a lot of intelligence on that customer based on product adoption, the value they're getting, and then calculate a whole bunch of things, which hopefully we'll get to talk about as we move forward.
Tell us, how does it work in the back end? What is the architecture, and how different elements come together in Customer Success Box?
Sure, that's a loaded question. So, but I get that question very often. So, like, okay, hold on. So you are going to tell me, you're going to deliver value to the customer so that I can renew the account. How the hell are you going to make that happen? So, first thing, I think we need to understand the subscription economy that we are living in today is I think close to about shy of $300 billion economy worldwide. That means businesses who are on subscription economy / cloud, that's the size, and which is going to be, I think, from 260 something to moving to about 250 something billion by 2022. And these are pre-COVID numbers that I have access to right now. I think post-COVID, the digital adoption has sort of multiplied many folds. While pre-COVID itself, the cloud was increasing by about 30%, but now I think the cloud and subscription is going to be increasing even more faster. Now that's the size of the market. So that means there are about $350 billion to be protected or renewed every year, if I can put it like that. Now, how do we do that? So first thing first, I think we need to make sure that the customer is onboarded right. So we've got very detailed onboarding journeys, which are not just a simple project management plan. It has multiple factors. One of the key factors there is that we track and drive true product adoption. So how do you know whether the customer is onboarded right or not? How do you know that the onboarding was successful? Because you've completed 5 trainings within the 2 weeks that you committed. Is that onboarding? Well, hell no. It has to be a lot better than that. And that is where we believe that, let's say whether your onboarding cycle is 1 week, 4 weeks, or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever that is, 30, 60, 90, whatever days, the end outcome should be measured in not just whether you've completed your tasks, which is you as your SaaS business has completed, the onboarding manager has completed their tasks, but also is the customer getting value? And that is crucial. So what we do is we track real product adoption. So we get data from multiple sources. So Customer Success Box feeds in on multiple sources. One of the key sources is the product telemetry. What is the customer doing with your product? So let's take an example, and probably we can build on it as we go along. Let's take an example of a CRM. So CRM is so in CRM you create leads. You let's say you connect your form with the website. When the leads come in, the leads get created. Then leads get moved up the stages. At some stage, an opportunity gets created, and the opportunity at some time gets moved as mark close won or close lost. So these are everything that you do sort of get tracks. Every time you create a lead, it sort of hits our servers. So we receive roughly about $25 billion events gets processed for our customers today on a monthly basis. That's the sort of scale that we are in. And so we get telemetry. But telemetry cannot be seen just in a silo. It needs to be seen, okay, for which customer are we seeing this data? So we need data from the CRM. Who is this customer? When have they signed up? Then we get data from your subscription management platform, let's say a ChargeBee or a Zora or a Recurly, to see, or Zoho subscription, to essentially see, how much are they paying, what plan they are on, when is the renewal coming up, all of that stuff. Then we also bring in data from your support ticketing systems, such as an Intercom, Zendesk, Freshdesk. And there we want to see, are they raising too many tickets, too less tickets? Then we also bring in data from your financial systems around invoices, whether are there only overdue invoices and things like those. So all this then gets merged and crunched into, are they seeing value during onboarding and post onboarding, by calculating something what we call an account health. So for every customer, I'm not talking user level. So we capture data at a user level and then roll it up at an account level. So just to be clear, from a B2B perspective. So we capture data, and based on all of this data, we calculate what is called an account health, which fundamentally will tell you who's getting value and who's not. So that you don't have to wait till the end of the renewal for a customer, wait till the day of the renewal or the anniversary of the term for you to realize, oh, this customer is not getting value and hence we should do something about it, because by then it'll already be too late. So this acts as an early warning system so that you can proactively intervene without waiting for the renewal term. And that ensures that your customers are always getting value, and hence they're staying your customers forever.
Now, I would like to understand, how did you come up with this product? What was the idea initially? How did you execute the idea to build a MVP? Can you take us back to those days?
Sure. So, like I gave you a little subscription economy backdrop. Let me start by giving you a little bit of my personal background, and I think that will quickly align well with why am I doing this. So my quick background is that I started as an engineer, and I think enjoyed being an engineer. I used to work at Honeywell. I was based out of Seattle and Bangalore. So used to hop between these two offices. And I remembered that we used to, I was working on a Airbus A380 weather radar program. So literally take the weather radar. Honeywell used to have their own airplanes. It's a Fortune 25 company. Honeywell used to have their own, and still probably do have their own airplanes for testing. They'll have an air base, and we'll literally, go to the airfield, stick the radar in the nose. So the weather radar sits behind the nose. So the nose sort of opens up and goes there, and we'll take it out for a spin. I think, and I love airplanes till date. I can watch them land and take off probably all day. I still do that sometimes. While enjoying that, I decided to sort of switch gears a little bit. I used to use a particular technology, and then I eventually started working for that company in pre-sales. Within 6 months, I moved to sales in that organization, and then did software selling. So I moved from being an engineer writing code to selling software. I could call it a move to the dark side, right? And did that for good donkey years. So for about 5-6 years, I was writing code. And then for about good 15 odd years, I was 12, 15 odd years before becoming an entrepreneur. I was selling software. So while I was selling software, eventually ended up in IBM. I've been selling SaaS, software as a service, since 2006. IBM acquired a company called Focal Point. I was party to that, and that is how I was selling SaaS since 2006. So far all good, and I think grew up the ladder. Started heading India, then moved to the US. Was heading Central US, then came back, was heading APAC, and then eventually, for my last company I was VP of worldwide sales for another SaaS company. Now, the interesting thing that happened in my last employment was, while I was wearing the hat of a VP of sales, my incentive plans, all sales are on incentives, my incentive plan was based on MRR, monthly recurring revenue. And that basically meant that I'd inherited, thousands of customers paying us millions of dollars. And so I was responsible for making sure that money keeps coming in. And my sales teams, which I inherited again, 20, 25 members strong sales team, I think they were kicking ass, and we as a team were kicking ass. I think we were bringing in lots of customers. But at the while we're bringing in customers, I'm wondering, everybody in my team is making incentive. Why am I not making incentives 2 months, 3 months in? So I did the math and I realized that there is a leak in the bucket. We're adding customers, we're losing customers. That means MRR is not changing. So in spite of we adding customers, there's a leak in the bucket. We're churning so many customers that almost nullifies the accounts that we're adding. And that is when we realize, oh shit, there's a leak in the bucket. So this was about 6-7 years ago. I was forced to learn about customer churn. I was forced to learn about customer success as a result of that. Then we started putting the practice in place, put the team in place. I was also one of the early adopters of one of those technologies back then. And then I think I love the idea of using technology to get an early warning system in place. But I realized that the technology lacks so many things that we wanted to do. And so here I am, all chips into CustomerSuccessBox. So that was my idea, and that is how I got together. Have I answered your question? I believe how I ended up here, right?
You answered it partly. Now that you have told us the background on how you came up with the idea, tell us how you executed the idea. How did you find the people to execute? Because I understand you are not a technical person. You need people to build the software. That is number one. Also, how did you? Of course, learning about customer success is one thing, but building a software requires in-depth knowledge about how customer success should be. Tell us, how did you manage all these things together?
No, absolutely. And I think you're spot on, knowing what you want to do versus executing are two different things. See, I'll go back to my 5-6 years of being an engineer, developer, playing with code, all of that stuff. So the way I put it is, once an engineer, always an engineer. I think I can still write code, although all I'll do is just do maybe Hello Worlds and Ruby on Rails and the latest stack, whatever is available, and I'll say I can code. I'm sure my co-founder will tell you no, he can't, but I do. But I do try to. I don't code anymore, but I do know enough to be dangerous, sort of a thing. So I think I always had an idea that what needs to be done. Along the 15 years in sales, and I think about 17-18 years of total WorkX, I have sold so many technologies, so many products. So I know exactly what goes inside a product, how a technology product, a SaaS platform or any software needs to address the business use cases, the business challenges, the business pain, and how do you bridge them. So I knew the problem statement because I've been selling software. I knew the solution end because I have been selling the software, and I have been, all these donkey years have taught me how to listen to the customer, understand what they need, and first of all, evaluate, is your technology even aligned with their challenge? Can you even help them? Because at the end of the day, sales is not about just pushing your software down someone's throat. It is about helping them to start with. Whether that can be achieved or what can be achieved with your software or not is a secondary piece. I think when you go out and try to help someone, that is going to be a lot more natural sale for you. Because see, I think sales is easy, building trust is difficult, and I think once you build trust, then people will trust you. Nobody is going to choose another software for a couple of features here or there, because that's never going to be a winning or a losing sort of point. But going back to addressing your question, so I understood exactly what needs to be built. But when it comes to building and having lived by rolling out Salesforce and seeing successes and failures of massive rollouts, all of that stuff, I had the vision of a very, very large software, right? Something that can do lots of things, which will be used by larger organizations and whatnot. But you can't start there. While that is your end goal, you're still starting at the bottom of the hill. And before you can reach the top of the mountain or top of the hill, you still have to define a path, number one. And then there will be enough milestones which should tell you that you're headed in the right direction. And I think while everybody knows the destination, and everybody also knows their starting position, where people get lost is in the path. And I think for us, we wanted to make sure, at least in my head, I wanted to make sure that I set up enough milestones along the journey to check, are we headed in the right direction? Are we headed in the right direction? And are we headed? So every day while you are, so as an entrepreneur, you want to swing between the two. on one hand, you've got the vision, which is going to change the world, and you're always headed for the top of the mountain and nothing less. On the other hand, you're being very, very humble and checking your gyroscopes and compasses every day. Hey, am I heading in the right direction? Am I gaining elevation? Am I losing? And I think, and those are some of the pieces that we wanted to check. So with that said, with that sort of a backdrop and approach, we started to build the MVP together, and our minimal viable product. By the way, I don't believe in MVP. I believe in a minimal viable market or a minimal viable problem. What is a minimal viable problem? There's a very beautiful lecture from I think David Scott, if I remember correctly. It's on YouTube. People should check it out. What it says is, don't build the minimum viable product. Find the minimal viable market and the minimal viable use case that your product can address at a bare minimum that people are willing to give you money for. And what I realized was, so for example, every product will have the core of value. For instance, our product, for example, back in the day, I think the core was, can I give you an early warning system that nobody else can because you don't have one in place? Can I provide every SaaS business, every SaaS leader that, hey, out of the 500 customers that you've got, or maybe 100 customers in a portfolio of one customer success manager, these 10 customers are red, and hence you need to intervene for this reason, for these customers, and this time you need to intervene. If I could just do that, and that was my core. It does not matter how easy it is to create users in my platform. It does not matter whether they can send emails from my platform at that point in time. Now people can. They can even make phone calls and whatnot. But at that point in time, this will always be the core. So I worked on an MVP. So we realized that this was missing. Then we picked up the very specific goal that all I need is product telemetry. All I will calculate is account health. All that will give you is a fundamental early warning system. And when we did that, we were able to build that in just 3 months. We made a public announcement for it. So we literally reached out to a lot of people. They said, hey, this is what we're building. If you want it, fill out this form. And by the way, we will be ready for the first demo 3 months later. Out of 100 people that we reached out to, we got, I think, 32 or 29, I'm losing, but somewhere around that, which is a pretty huge number. About 29 people signed up the form, and it was designed for, about, I think, 15 or 20 fields. Because if you are somebody who's not really interested, does not want to fill out form, I don't want you to, even be in that funnel. So we deliberately made the form longer. We got 29 people lined up for a demo, which will happen 3 months later. And we were upfront about this. So that, I think, was the first milestone. Okay, I'm about to set on a journey to build something which is, which people want, and they're willing to wait for it, and they're willing to fill the form. That's one. Then, and this was all on cold emails. Okay, there was not referrals, nothing. Number two, once we built the platform, then we reached out to those, I think, 29. I don't think all the demos happened, but probably about, I think, early 20s, we did the demonstration. And from there, we gained our first 10 customers. So I think the journey was amazing there. We were obviously not charging a lot. We were, I think we're thankful for them. We will not be there without them. But the product was obviously back then was very alpha release, if I can call it that. And but it did deliver on value. We helped them get ahead of where they were, and so we started.
Okay. Building a product or building a company, it's a task that you cannot do it alone. You have to find right people, or if I may say, you have to hire people. Tell us about how do you go about hiring people? I personally have been to one of your hiring processes, and I have felt that it's a little different from how other companies recruit people. Tell us about it.
So let me start by talking about that. I don't like the word hiring, and I don't like the word even employees, especially in a startup. See, hiring is a very contractual arrangement. I pay you something, you do something in return. Okay, especially in the technology industry or the knowledge workers, as my MBA prof taught me. I think nobody is working just for money. And I think that's a well-established fact. And I understand this because I have been on the other side for majority of my career. I never worked for money. And I'm not saying money is not important and you should work for free. I'm definitely not suggesting that. But what I'm saying is money is not the only thing. And the sooner, people who are chasing a big fatter paycheck, I think the sooner they learn, so they sort of eventually realize the more you chase it, the harder it becomes. And once you start chasing passion, you'll realize at some point money will start chasing you. Whether you want it or not, money will chase you eventually. All you have to do is follow your passion. And Priya, you are, I think, a better example that your audience sort of listen to you almost every day on podcast. And I think this is Priya, you are the best example of chasing passion, right? So, but let's come back to how do you find your initial team members? So here we were able to, pull out the first 3 months, and we were able to, pull out the product in the first 3 months. It was actually at the back of a previous gig or a previous company that I started in advocacy marketing. We were fundamentally, core 4 team members. Me, my co-founder, and a couple of other, early team members, as good as founders. And I believe the first, 20, 25 people in your organization are equally founders. And that is the mindset with which you can run. Because, if you're thinking about hiring and employment contracts, you're paying somebody for hours. And, entrepreneurship and even working in a startup is never a 9-to-5 job. You never switch off. Even if you're on a holiday, I'm sorry to say that, but your passion. So let's say, Priya, you're a marketer, if for whatever organization you're working, right? And likewise for whatever organization, for whoever is working with my team, you never switch off. My designer never stops thinking about design. My marketer never stops thinking about marketing. And my developers never stop thinking about, improving the architecture, increasing the performance. My DevOps guy is always thinking about better security, all of those things. And hence, it is a team play that you want. Now, how do we go about doing it? I think it purely depends on what stage of the organization you are. At the initial phases, so for example, if some of your listeners are thinking about starting a startup, so guys, let me be very upfront here. You cannot just hire team members, no matter what money you're willing to throw at them. It does not matter. What you will have to do is inspire people to be in your team, to work with you, to accept you as a leader, to believe in your passion, and to believe in your vision. At the same time, you need to understand, are they aligned? Are their goals, their individual aspirations, how are they aligned? How are you helping them achieve their goals? And both of them need to coexist in a very symbiotic relationship together. And that has to be the mindset. With that said, from a mindset perspective, you will only find initial team members from your current and existing networks. You are not going to find, you can definitely bump into people and be friends and find co-founders and early team members. And I think, luck be on your side. But for that, you'll have to do a few things. Number one, you have to go out, make friends, be in those networking areas. No, you don't have to go out, in a let's say a conference and saying these are the top 5 guys and I have to go and meet them. Don't have to be, you're not running a sales or a hiring process there. Okay. You're not there yet. You will have to let it, happen naturally. Think of it as like, falling in love. You always fall in love. You can't jump in it. Nobody can push you in it. You have to fall in it. And falling is something that you can't force. It will happen when it will happen. So go in those networks, just make yourself available there. You'll connect with people, you'll connect with like-minded people. And I think that is how you're gonna do that. You can definitely pick up the phone, reach out to your ex-colleagues. For example, I am friends from my schoolmates, and I'm from my schoolmates to my college mates, to my, my master's and my MBA class. And after that, all my organizations that I've worked with, I'm friends with my mentors there. I'm friends with my colleagues. I'm friends with my juniors. And I think being friends just does not mean that, that I like them or they like me. I'm somehow able to maintain touch. And interestingly, you don't have to maintain touch with, all of them or every day or every week. I think that happens more naturally. Even once a year touch point, I think is fantastic because you've you've built a very thick relationship with them. And when you reach out to them and say, hey, this is something that I'm doing, do you have any recommendations, or what do you think about this idea? You'll find that people who have worked with you 10 years ago, 15 years ago, still believe in you. They've sort of seen your journey, they've been in touch, and they can extrapolate where you're going. That's most important. Right. And I think that is when they want to party, they want to be part of your journey, and they want to be, party to whatever you're building. So I don't know if I give anybody any process here, but that was the mindset with which I think I have always worked. So yeah, that's how I'll put it.
I think you have answered it beautifully. Tell us, how did you fund your operations initially, at least till the time you got your first customers or any external fundings?
Awesome. So let me give you a larger funding, piece, because many of your, I think all the entrepreneurs listening to this don't need to hear it from me. They probably already know it better than me. But all the wannabe entrepreneurs, all the aspirants here, listening to your podcast, let me break some dirty truth for you, because I don't want to, give something which is hard to accept, any sugarcoating and trying to make it easy for you. In my 15, 20 years of corporate career, I've worked with fantastically smart people, amazingly smart people, 10 times, 100 times smarter than I am. Okay. And or I ever will be. But unfortunately, all of them want to be entrepreneurs. Won't they aspire to be entrepreneurs? Of course, they're great leaders. They've proven they've got skill set. They've got the knowledge. They've got the they've got the might. They've got every damn thing. One thing which is not been in favor of them is their financial situations. And these are people living very comfortable life, middle class, upper middle class lives. Been in the corporate world for decades and stuff. And unfortunately, we all, I was one of them, and who was party to buying a bigger car, taking a larger, fatter home loan, and buying the next fancy gadget, whether you need it or not. You always want one, and living a fancy life of restaurants and all of that stuff. So what that does is that sort of keeps tying you up in a larger cash flow circle, where you need more and more money to survive every you're growing and demand of your own lifestyle, and that keeps increasing. So no matter how much you earn, that sort of keeps increasing. So if you have to get out of this circle, and I think there's a very good classic book which is called The Rich Dad Poor Dad. If many of you probably read it, if you've not, that book's conceptually, that book is never going to get old. Forget about bestsellers. Think about ever sellers. One of my mentors taught me this term. So think about ever sellers. So this is an ever seller. So pick it up. Good Dad, Poor, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And what it'll tell you is that how do you get out of this circle? How do you get out of this circle? And hence, you have to put yourself in a position that you will be and can be financially in a spot where you can afford a current lifestyle for the good, I will say 5 years. Okay, but a bare minimum 2 to 3 years. A bare minimum 2 to 3 years. Okay, not 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3, before you dive in. So that basically means you need to get your financials in order. And when I say you have to get so much financials, your current expense today might be, let's say, equivalent to whatever you're making. But the only way you're going to get out of this is by increasing your pay size, reducing your expense, investing the balance, and then working towards making a corpus large enough so that you can one day jump into the entrepreneurship bucket. And hopefully along the way, you're going to get a lot of financial support in the world that we live in today. I think venture capital is very easily available. Any one of you can raise, capital in Bangalore. I'm not talking Silicon Valley or anything. In Bangalore, within 2 weeks, if you've got what it takes, within 2 weeks, like no kidding. I'm not talking 2 weeks and 1 day. I'm talking 2 weeks strictly. So I think hopefully that will happen, but still you need to be prepared to maintain a lifestyle and fund your organization for at least 2 to 3 years even in a very bootstrap way, if that is what it takes, because there will be testing times. Nobody can avoid that. Then how do you get yourself here? Let me give you another context to this financial thing. All of this is also interesting when you look at your own life journey. There are two opportunities in life when you'll be most comfortable running or becoming an entrepreneur. One is when you're Joseph very recently out of college. You're single, you're not married. That means you've got very less commitments. Your parents likely are still working and they're still probably giving you money. I'm like some of you who are as shameless as me probably were still taking money for a few years from the parents. So touch wood. And but your parents are financially independent and they are, they're happy to support you. You are hopefully not the eldest or the only member and all of that stuff. If you are at that luxurious position in life, okay, then I think that luxury will allow you to use that as a foundational stone and start a startup. Yes, it'll be too early. You probably don't have enough experience, but just a couple of experience in a few good startups, well-designed experience with a right mindset will give you enough experience, and you should be able to dive in right then, as early as you can. The other opportunity will come after you're married, you've probably had kids, you've paid off your home loan. So which usually happens about 10, 15 years later in life, which is where I came in, right? So I decided not to buy a bigger house, not to buy a bigger, car or a fancier car, and essentially, put all my investments for where my passion was. And I think that's the second opportunity. So the second one is a lot more difficult to plan because you'll have to plan for 15 years. And the first one is a lot more, you might be in that situation. And I think you can definitely do it. I'm not saying in between, it's not possible. It depends on, what your mindset as a family, what your alignment with your partner is, how you think as a family. And of course, some of you might not even be dependent on your salaries for this. If you're born and raised in a business class sort of a family, then there are enough means for you to dive in. I think then there is no reason for you to not do this unless you're working just to gain experience, and that's totally fine. Yeah.
Okay. Now, at least till now, you have made it sound like a cakewalk. I'm sure it is not.
Oh.
Tell us about the challenges that you have faced so far during your entrepreneurial journey.
Cool. So it was definitely not a cakewalk. I think the stories that we all get to tell make it sound like cakewalk because we make them probably interesting or try to, put it as if you just do this one thing and then you will get to success. There is no single silver bullet. So let me tell you, no matter what you plan, how much you prepare for, no matter how many ELI podcasts you listen to, nothing will prepare you for the real world. And as it's very well said, and this is exactly what is going to happen. Your battle plan is only going to last, for the first day of the battle. And when the real battle happens, I think every day there is a new challenge. It's a roller coaster ride. You don't know what's going to hit you next day. And when I say next day, I literally mean next day. While all of us want to, control our destiny, which starts by let me plan this year, let me plan this quarter, let me plan this day, and let me start planning hours on my calendar. Fantastic. I'm a slave of my calendar, and I, make sure my calendar is not open if I don't accept something that I don't want to be party to. I don't even let my emails rule me. So if you send me an email, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean you. If I get an email, that doesn't mean I'm going to read it. So I treat my inbox as a Google search. I dive in and search for stuff in my inbox when I want to get to it. I don't let my inbox get to me. Of course, there are certain emails or from a certain people that you want to be staying on top. It's your team, it's your investors, it's your customers, and some other partners and some key initiatives. But the rest of the emails will have to wait when I'm ready for them. So stage you're going to face a different challenge. The initial challenge, of course, is going to be building a team, and building a team is basically polishing your own polishing your own pitch, clearing your own, like, okay, what do you want to do? When you go, let's say you ping somebody who was working with you 10 years ago. Let's say he was a kick-ass developer, and you reach out to him saying, and this is what happened with my co-founders. Like, it was not, we were working together at one of our previous organizations. Then he left to do another startup. I continued working there. Then he was shutting down that startup, and I was starting mine, and that is when we bumped into each other again. And I thought, it's like, sure, you want to start as a developer, another startup. I want to start a startup as a coming from the business side of things, and let's join hands. But you will find in your first conversation, you will not even be prepared for that, because remember, I told you, you're looking for team members who are well aligned. This team member this co-founder wants to be completely in, and she is going to ask you questions that probably you are aware of. You never face them to yourself, but you will be facing them in front of this individual and say, okay, what happens? Why do we want to do this? Why can't they buy competitors? What happens if, you run out of money? What happens if I run out of money? If this happens, if that happens, if we don't get customers, if we get customers, if customers are not paying us enough, if I'm not able to develop the software, if our software fails, all sorts of scenarios. And those will be tough questions, which will be put in front of you. And you, on that day, you'll think, wow, what great tough questions. And when you start running out of answers, you'll think, man, this is not good. He's asking me useless questions. These are hypothetical questions. You will start hating that individual for it. Okay. But now let's quickly move in a time travel from this, few hours or maybe 2 hours of question answer back and forth to the real life. All those questions will come true at some point in the next few years. And you will be faced to make those, decisions. And at that point, I think hopefully some of the earlier thinking, some of the earlier arguments, some of the earlier brainstorming that you've done with your team members, your co-founders, and your well-wishers will come in handy, and you will sort of, you will have some value system intact to sort of guide you through those tough questions. So I'm not going to go very specific here. I faced this problem A or B or C. I think it does not matter. There's no one single problem that I can tell you. I think as and when, so for example, if you're facing a marketing problem, then I will suggest, just like you are taking inspiration from ELIs and Priya to start an entrepreneurial journey. I think at that point, you want to look for people who have spoken extensively about marketing. If you're facing a hiring problem or team building problem, hiring is not the right word. Then you look for, those communities, those podcasts, those mentors to help you out. And I think that is the best way of tackling it. So I'm just not trying to undermine, I think the question, Priya, I think it's more important to understand how you deal with the problem, because unless we are very deep into a subject, we will not be able to do justice to any problem in passe. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have many more questions left, but due to constraint of time, I'll limit it to just one. Tell us what are the different learnings that you have got as an entrepreneur, which we can take away from this session and apply it to our venture. And more importantly, we shouldn't go through the same learning phase again because you have gone through it.
All right. So I'll try to then package this into something, that I think every entrepreneur, and again, I'm assuming majority of your listeners are aspiring entrepreneurs and
Yes.
and want to start or have just started, and some of these questions are still in front of them. So some of there are lots of tough questions, I think, that you will answer. And I'm a long form guy, so always listen to long podcasts. And I think the best is always read long books. Trying to get knowledge from 2-minute videos or 5-minute read blogs is going to be helpful if you have read that author's book prior to getting on their blog, or you've sort of gone through some long form stuff from them. That will give you a lot of context. Okay. So but that was a side note. If you're getting more into this journey, and entrepreneurship, I think, again, has lots of great books which are available, so you should check those out. I can probably leave my favorite books. I'll mention to Priya, but one of them that comes to top of my mind is a founder's dilemma. I think this is a lot about team building. This is a lot about how do you split equity between your founder and yourself. When do you quit your job? Do you do it full-time initially or part-time? If one of you is full-time, the other guy is part-time. So it answers and addresses lots of those. I don't think it gives you an answer. It gives you a framework to think about it, and then you can sort of take calls there, and hopefully avoid some mistakes, in course, and learn from there. So check out that book. I think that will be very helpful. One of the key things that I don't think any book sort of addresses is that you will constantly be asked that, hey, do you want to do this bootstrapped or do you want to raise capital? Now, all of us, will think, oh, if somebody is going to offer me a few $1 million, I'll take it. But while you're not able to take those $1 million, you're thinking, how do I keep a strong face? So I'll say, oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm building it on my own. I think we're growing, right? So while we have external faces that we want to keep for good reasons, but from a thinking perspective, here is what I'm going to tell you as a secret, which is what I've learned. And again, I call it a secret because this is what I've learned, and I treat me as a learning of one data point. Okay. So whether it applies to you or someone else might have another learning, all of us are a beast of our own experiences. Another mentor of mine taught me that. So, so coming back, the big question is, should you bootstrap or should you raise capital? First point, both of them are proven, absolute realistic models to becoming a successful entrepreneur, raising a large organization, raising a large company, and even being a unicorn. Both of those, I think, are absolutely proven. So you can't go wrong with either, number one. Number two, what is the difference between the two? The difference between the two is and I think you will also have to go with, what sort of a personality you are. So bootstrapped world, and where are you in your life stage? Okay. A bootstrapped world is going to usually take a lot longer to get success, before you are successful. It's going to take you more time. It's going to be a slower start, but I think equally strong footing will be there. While the start will be slower, your footing is going to be very strong. And I think you're going to take time, as long as you surround yourselves with people who are constantly questioning you, and you've got your eye on the goal, and you're measuring your progress, and you're just not surviving or persisting. That alone is not enough. I think persistence is the most important thing in bootstrap world. No entrepreneur can deny that. No successful entrepreneur can deny that. But I think measuring as you persist, measuring yourself is also equally important. Then in the growth world, where you're taking capital investments from venture capitalists, is an equally interesting path. Now there, it's a speed world. So you're basically spending money to get speed. So if you know exactly what you want to build, if you have people who are willing to work with you, but obviously will require money and power, if you know the market that you're building for, if you have the experience, if you have the market understanding, if you have the sales skills, if you know what you are doing, more and more you know what you're doing, you need to fall towards, VC led world. You are likely going to, get more reward for the time and effort. If you know less and less and you're still figuring things out, I think you should fall towards the bootstrap world. Again, this is a very broad framework. There are like a million exceptions. I will not even call them exceptions. There are enough people on both sides who have done it the other way around. And even if you're choosing to build it bootstrap, let's say for the initial year or initial few years, that does not mean you have to stay bootstrap forever. So the day you say, I think I know enough and I am now ready to step on the gas pedal, if somebody gives me a few $1 million and if I can raise a few $1 million, then I can extrapolate my growth, then I think absolutely you should be able to do that. And it is okay to, patiently wait for the right opportunity. You have, if you're a cricketer, facing the right bats, taking your batting and you have to hit something big, it's okay to show some patience for the right ball, for the right baller even, or even for the right over. And I think very, very equally, it is okay to, sort of know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then wait for the right moment. And that's completely fine. I think, for example, given the scenario that we're living in today, I think COVID has taught lots of skills of survival. I think one of the skills of survival is that a lot of businesses are possibly falling. So a lot of businesses have gone, tailwinds like ourselves. We sort of, with the digital adoption, the situation, the pandemic actually favored the digital adoption of CustomerSuccessBox, and because it favored digital adoption, it favored CustomerSuccessBox journey as well and growth as well. But a lot of others are also, for example, if you are, let's say if you are an HR tech, or now that's again picking up and has already picked up, but in 2020 everybody decided to just go in hibernation. Okay, how do you hibernate the COVID part and then come out still alive and breathing and successful when there is enough meat available to, enough business available to sort of start growing again. And I think those are some of the skill sets that I think I probably could have shared. But yeah, there you go.
Okay, thanks, Puneet, for coming here and sharing the beautiful lessons that you have learned and other things. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. I would say my best wishes for Customer Success Box. I'd like to see it to grow to a unicorn, then a decacorn, and even more. Thanks for your time, Puneet. You have a good day ahead.
Thank you, Priya. Awesome. Thanks for having me. Pleasure was all mine. Cheers.